Hey there. Well, talking a little more about microservice, I just got here the 5 mistakes that if you are making them, maybe you are ruining your microservice project, okay? Maybe there are, not maybe, but of course there are more mistakes than those 5, but those 5 is really important and you should consider them if you are trying to get on microservice project or if you are already running microservice project. So the first of them is scan software before scaling people, okay? I have talked about it in the last video where I covered the Conway's law. So I can put the link here, but just for a quick review, the way that your company is organized is the way that your company will deliver software. Okay, so if you have your teams that just organized under silos, those silos will define the way that you deliver. So you have the database team, the middleware team, the front-end team. So the output is database, middleware, and front-end. So, but if you have cross-functional teams, okay, so database, middleware, front-end in the same team, the output is an artifact, a software application that have database, front-end, and middleware. Okay, so that's how we have microservice. Okay, so if you are building microservice just to scale software before scaling people, please don't. Okay, so think again, look around, see if you really need this kind of scaling on your teams, then go ahead and do microservice. Okay. The second mistake that maybe you are making right now, is microservice that share databases. Okay, so a very important pattern for microservice is called database per service. Okay, and why? Because you have your microservice all separated from each other. Maybe they are not even in the same network, they are not using the same database, they are run by different teams in your organization. So if you are sharing the database from different microservices, you can have huge problems related to consistency, related to register locking, and another maybe other problems. Okay, transaction, because you don't have a transaction in the ACID way, in the way that we used to have in monoliths. So you need to handle your transactions with your service, maybe using sagas and so on. So please don't share database between microservices. Okay, many people is struggling with that, especially when moving from monoliths to microservice. Okay, in databases is very important. Okay, I have a great recommendation for you. There is a book from a friend of mine, a big friend of mine, Edson Yanaga, where Edson shows you how to move your monolith database to microservice approach. Okay, so please don't share database among microservices. Okay. The third mistake is not having an automated pipeline. Okay, so when people ask me sometimes, how do I move my monolith to microservice? One of my answers is you already have an automated pipeline, and if you don't have, please don't do microservice. Okay, and the reason is very simple. If you have problem to deliver, to deploy, for example, just one artifact, just one file, just one WAR file, jar file, or whatever, imagine how much problems we will have if you need to deploy 10, 20, 50, 100, 1,000, 2,000, okay? So all your problems will be multiplied. And so you really need to have an automation process, really mature, okay? Really doing the things automated, really automated. That's why we need automation. Okay, so in that way you can start to splitting your monolith into microservice and handling all those problems in a very much more easy way. Okay, so in order to not multiply your problems with, especially with deployments, please have an automated pipeline before move to microservice. The fourth mistake is highly coupled microservice or service. Okay, here is the service that needs to know too much about each other. Okay, so I need to call this service. I need first to call this one because I know that this one, when it's run, executed another process, that this process we need to know. So don't do that. Okay, if two services need to know a lot about each other, why they are separated? Okay, so get them together. Okay, so you really need to build your service with a loose coupling. Okay, a loose coupling and high cohesion. Okay, a microservice needs to be very specialized in order to work well, in order to scale, in order to help the way that your team is working with them, the way that your teams are communicating to each other. Okay, so the interfaces should be very simple to work with them, the simplest possible. Of course, there are services that are complicated, but in the way that one servers don't know a lot about each other. Okay, and the fifth mistake that maybe you are making is not using containers. Okay, and I'm not saying here that containers is made just for microservice or microservice only will run in containers. Okay, I'm not saying that. In that said, containers are great for microservice. Containers is great for building microservice, for handling your deployment, your tests, your building, your even coding phases. Containers will help your operations teams to handling all those hundreds, dozens, thousands of microservices. Okay, so containers will ease a lot of the way that you deal with microservice. So okay, maybe sometimes somewhere, some application, you won't run that microservice in a container, but I would suggest you to treat it as an exception. Okay, so in most of cases, you should think about run that microservice in a container, and by using that, you can deploy it on a Kubernetes. You can have an orchestration. You can have a lot of stuff that we have today for containers for microservices. Okay, so just reviewing. First mistake: scale software before scaling people. Second mistake: to share databases. Third mistake: not having an automated pipeline. The fourth mistake: services that are high coupled. And the fifth mistake is service not using containers. Okay, hope you enjoy, and if you agree or don't agree, leave your comment here. I will appreciate. See you next time. Bye bye.